Raider Nation, can I just say something? I have just missed you guys. I've missed coming on here. We've got a heck of a show lined up. Me and Farrell, we're excited. There's so much to talk about. The Raiders, the new era of the Las Vegas Raiders has begun. We're in search for a new franchise quarterback. And I couldn't be more fired up this offseason. There's some prospects that we're going to talk about, and we're really going to get into all four guys tonight who are going to be at the top of the NFL draft and who's going to be the best fit for the Raiders and who, in our opinion, who we actually want to choose to be the next quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. So without further ado, I'm going to get into my chat and I'm going to just shout out Raider Nation. I have missed you guys. So Sean Johnson is in the building. Salute Raider Ray and Farrell. Thank you, Sean, for pulling up. And make sure everybody share where you're at tonight. Let other Raider fans know that Raider Ray, Farrell NFL are live. We have a great show lined up, and we're excited that you guys decided to spend your evening with us. Van City is in the building. Well. If it isn't my favorite time of the day, time to talk some Raiders football. 100%. Alex is in the building. He says Raiders. Austin is in the building. He says they're saying Will Levis at 7 for us. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into all of it. Daniel Kim is in the building. He says so much to talk about. So much indeed. Let's see. Daniel Kim says, let's go. Van City, fire. Sean, fire. Daniel Kim, Dodgers everything. Yo, my early or late, you are on time. That's a perfect time to be. Chronicles of the Black Hole. Can't wait to see what happens. I would like to see a plan unfold. We're going to get into it. There's a couple plans that we could get into. Holly is in the building. Holly, I'm going to make you a moderator. Actually, right now, if I can. We'll see. I'm going to make you a moderator. But without further ado, you guys, let me introduce my co-host. It's none other than Pharaoh NFL.
Hey, what's good, everybody, man? Hey, what's good, man? Hey, I'm glad to be back, man. Talk about Raider football, man. Hey, I know we had a tough season, but hey, one of my favorite parts of the year is the offseason for the Raiders.
100%.
Everybody's excited around this time of year, like the possibilities with free agency and the draft, especially with the combine being this week. We're gonna get into that. And obviously the QBs and we're gonna have a good conversation today. But salute to the nation, salute to the chat, man. I appreciate everybody pulling up.
So yeah, without further ado, man, let's just jump into it. We've got the combine this week, and it's begun. The Raiders are in search for that new franchise guy. We all know the top of the names at the top of the board, right? We've got Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. There's going to be a lot of homework that the Raiders have to do on all of these prospects. Obviously, Bryce Young is probably going to go to the top of the draft, and I know you're a guy who's pretty big on Bryce Young. I know you like his game.
Yep.
He's got some question marks when it comes to his size, but I think he has all the ability in the world overall. Unless, the Colts trade up to the first spot, unless the Houston Texans decide to take it, Bryce Young is probably going to be the first quarterback off the board. And then you start working your way down. You get to a CJ Stroud, and you're talking about a good quarterback. You're talking about a guy who, what is his ceiling necessarily? You're talking about just a good football player who could plug in and probably start right away over a guy like a Jarrett Stidham. You got a Will Levis who, look, you guys, we're going to get into it. You can honestly make a case for all four of these guys to be next quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. And then you've got Anthony Richardson, which, in my opinion, has the highest upside of every quarterback in this draft, who has skill sets that you can't coach and whose flaws are very coachable. So we're going to get into that as well. But how do you feel about the combine? How do you feel about maybe Josh McDaniels' presser, maybe some things that stood out to you? And you guys, we are going to bring you some audio clips specifically from Champ Kelly and his interview. We thought it was great. Really good sit-down interview. If you guys haven't, go check out the assistant GM Champ Kelly's interview. But Pharaoh, let me know. What are you looking forward to this combine?
Just going back to what you said about McDaniels, I mean, and even Dave Z, they pretty much said everything that that we kind of knew already. You know what I mean? They're just doubling down. I'm glad, as reports suggest, that the Raiders are out of the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes. Man, hey, look, that was, to me, in my opinion, a disaster waiting to happen. Not in that Aaron Rodgers is a bad player. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best QBs in the league. But what would it take for Aaron Rodgers to come? Where are we at as a team with the Raiders? Let's be honest. The Raiders have a lot of holes. As we've seen with their record, we can get on the coaching and stuff, but the talent defensively, especially, every level that defense needs to improve. And now you're gonna use all the resources to pay Aaron Rodgers to come to a team that let's be like, hey, I think the Green Bay Packers had a way better defense if you think about it. I mean, offensively, you can argue we probably had more pieces, but it's just not. It doesn't make any sense to me. And now moving forward, you could hear Dave Z. He's been saying it all offseason since the beginning of offseason up until now. He's kind of been preaching that, hey, we're gonna look. We're not gonna make a move for right now. We're gonna make a move for the future, and that means that to me that sounds like they're gonna be looking into drafting a QB. And then obviously we heard McDaniels this week talk about pretty much hey, they're when they're getting a QB, they're looking long term. And hey, that sounds like they're gonna be looking at in the draft to draft a guy. And man, we'll get into like the different draft picks, but as far as the combines, I mean, the quarterbacks haven't ran anything. They haven't done anything yet. I know they've met with teams, and one of our guys, me and Ray, especially Ray, he's been on it since day one. Anthony Richardson has been connected to the Raiders. He's met with the Raiders, which hey man, at the end of the day, like let's be honest, like we're in a division with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, you got Justin Herbert. If you just look at the AFC in a whole, like there's talented QBs left and right. So when you look at some of these QBs, what is their ceiling? But when you look at a guy like Anthony Richardson, the ceiling is crazy. You know what I mean? I just think that his potential is where you're going to be looking at in order for the Raiders to be at least be a threat, man, for years to come.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting coming from Josh McDaniels that he said, this system is going to be built around whoever comes in and whatever their skill set is. And that was a completely different feel to me compared to the Derek Carr situation. And the Derek Carr situation kind of felt like DC was put into Josh McDaniels' system and was forced to teach. Josh McDaniels almost has this look in his eye, and I think he has a passion for young quarterbacks. And I think that there's a few guys in the top of this class. I think we'll look back, and this class is going to be similar to me, like the Justin Fields class, and all those guys who were the Trey Lances, the Justin Fields, that kind of class where you don't necessarily know what you're getting. But I think a guy like Josh McDaniels see some guys with some very good tools. And if you're a coach, all you want to do is get your hands on one of these prospects, develop them, look at the boom or bust potential. And I want to save Anthony Richardson because I kind of just want to I could take a whole segment and just talk about Anthony Richardson.
Right.
If there's a player that you fall in love with in the draft, and I might be setting myself up for failure because it's going to hurt to see him go to another organization. And I know, look, Raider Nation, you guys aren't always going to agree with me when it comes to a prospect. But Anthony Richardson is my guy, and I'm going to give you a few reasons why. But let's make a case, right? Let's make a case for these quarterbacks. Let's go through them. Obviously, I don't want to get too much into Bryce Young. Bryce Young's going to be off the board. I want to take a look at the three quarterbacks, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson, who might be there at 7. Obviously, they're not all going to be on the board, but the Raiders have an opportunity to go get one of those three guys at some point. Starting with CJ Stroud. How do you feel about CJ, and would you be comfortable for the Raiders taking him?
I think he's the safest QB on the board, to be honest with you. He has the size, he has good he got good athletic ability. He's accurate. The only thing about him is his ceiling. Like when you just got to think about where the Raiders are they're not in the NFC, they're in the AFC West. And like I mentioned before, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. Obviously, if you look at the AFC as a whole, you got the Burrows of the world, you got the Lamar Jacksons, you got all these talented QBs all in one conference. You look at a guy like, do you want to use your pick on a guy like a CJ Stroud? I mean, I'm not saying that he won't be a great QB. It's just as of right now, do you see him being a guy that will be better than these QBs? Can you foresee that? Does he have that ability? Or like a guy like we had Marcus Johnson like a couple weeks ago, where he kind of compared him to like maybe at best a Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I could see him eventually. I think his like ceiling is that 15 to 12 range. If I'm being completely honest with you, he's good at pretty much everything. He's a good quarterback, and if he came in, he would step right in and compete with Jarrett Stidham right away. But yeah, the ceiling isn't that intriguing to me. Now, I will say this. I can see the Raiders going with any three of these prospects, CJ, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. And I actually want to be mad for whatever direction they decided to go, because the more you sit and watch their film, you could make the case for three of these guys of why Josh McDaniels would want to take these guys. First, starting with CJ, a guy who can tack outside the numbers, a guy in the Georgia game who was creative with his legs, lost his number one weapon in Marvin Harrison Jr. And the big knock on CJ Stroud was, can he create with his legs? You know, he looks like one of those guys who's stuck in the pocket and his feet are pretty stiff. You didn't see that in the Georgia game. You've seen a player creating with his legs, keeping his eyes down the field, pushing the ball, and kept that game extremely close. And CJ, if you really want to turn on a game and say, hey, if I'm getting that guy every single Sunday, that's a guy I could see taking at 7. That would be against Georgia. And I think if you're getting that CJ Stroud pretty consistently, you're getting a really good football player. Will Levis, on the other hand, look, this is one of those guys that's who's 6'3", 220, another big quarterback who struggled in Kentucky this last year. And it's not necessarily all on him. You know, he was dealing with a shoulder injury. He was dealing with a hand injury. His offensive line was garbage. I mean, horrible. And Raider Nation, can you guys give me one offensive playmaker on Kentucky? I'll save your time. There is none. You know, that like when it comes to skill positions, running back, wide receiver, he didn't have talent. And if you took a Will Levis and you plug him into a Raiders offense with an extremely upgraded offensive line from what he's used to playing in Kentucky, and you put him with a Devontae, a Darren Waller, a Hunter Renfrow, and a Josh Jacobs, you don't know, right? This guy has a ceiling of a Josh Allen. You know, he has that kind of ability to, year one, you might not be getting that. You might be getting a guy who has to create with his legs a little bit to get this offense going. But if you let him develop year 2, year 3, you know, Farrell, me and you, we see this similar, and this is like a 5-year projection. I'm not looking for the rookie quarterback that's going to come in this year and send the Raiders to the playoffs this season. I'm looking at that next contract. Like, who is going to be the biggest quarterback come the time of the second contract? And when you look at that kind of situation, there's a quarterback on our radar that I think stacks up in that favor.
Facts, 100%. And going back to CJ Stroud, man, like I'm not saying CJ Stroud would be a bad pick for the Raiders. If the Raiders got him, I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's just that my level of excitement would be, okay, is he going to be, and I'm not saying this year, I'm not saying he has to be better, but like, when is he going to, what's his peak? Who is he going to be like 3 years down the road? You know what I mean? And it's hard to project that, you know, that's why like scouts and GMs, they get paid the big bucks to make those types of decisions. But I don't know, man. I just don't feel like he's that guy. And especially when you look at Anthony Richardson, you just see the potential. Like you see, I know it's a classic boomer bust. We know he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he has everything else. You know what I mean? He has all the tools that you would need. He has, man, like, look, today, the D linemen and linebackers were testing today as far as, you know, doing drills. And, man, these guys are supreme athletes. I mean, I think I looked at one of the D linemen, I think a Nolan Smith. He ran like the second fastest D lineman since 2003. He ran a 4.39, which is crazy. And then you had a D tackle ran like the fastest D tackle since 2003. Like, so which tells you that like these D linemen are supremely athletic. You can't just have a statue back there. You're gonna have a guy that can create. And you mentioned that CJ Stroud, you know, one of the knocks on him was that he kind of likes to stay in that pocket. He doesn't really use his legs too much. I mean, obviously Ohio State has a great O-line, so he probably didn't have to use his legs. But when he did have to use his legs, you know, it was a good sign against Georgia, one of the most talented teams in college football. He was able to do that. But you know, I'm just, hey man, I have I'm with you 100%. Me and Ray, man, we kind of like we circled our QB to draft. Like, you know, that's our guy is Anthony Richardson, hands down.
And come draft night, when hopefully me and Farrah are going live and you guys are joining us for the draft, that's going to be the one that Anthony Richardson is the player that I'm just extremely excited about. Like, if the Raiders were to select him, that's what's going to get me more excited about this season than any other prospect coming out in this draft. Now, does he have probably the lowest floor of the guys? Yeah, but his ceiling he has all the potential in the world. And this is going to be one of those situations that I think Anthony Richardson is going to have a far better professional career than what he did a collegiate career. Now, he's not going to be ready year one, but I think he needs the time. So everybody that would say, hey, sit Anthony Richardson for a year, I don't think so. I think you get him in this offense. I think you let him get those learning lessons out of the way, and he's going to have a lot of learning lessons to do. But it's completely the upside. If you're talking about reinvigorizing this team, giving it a new energy, giving it a new sense of direction, a guy who's going to be able to compete with the Patrick Mahomes, if he does start to click and his game starts to develop, Anthony Richardson is one of those dynamic playmakers that he has all the tools in the world that separates him from 90% of the guys in the league. His ability to create with his legs, his pocket awareness, his ability to not panic when everything in the pocket starts to break down. Something that we've seen with Derek Carr that he struggled with mightily is when that pocket started to break down, he folded. And that's where Anthony Richardson thrives. That pocket starts to break down. The chaos starts to happen behind the line of scrimmage. And Anthony Richardson is keeping his eyes down the field, looking for that big shot and looking for lanes to escape or create. And I think that's what the Raiders offense needs. But to be honest with you, they could go a multitude of directions. I know for a minute now, I think the Raiders have been on Anthony Richardson's trail. If you remember back in September, there was a report that Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly actually went to the Florida and Tennessee game. And what's interesting about that is, look, there's two quarterbacks on both of those teams that the Raiders could be taking a look at. Anthony Richardson and Hendon Hooker. And I would not be mad at going and getting Hendon Hooker either. I know that he's met with the Raiders. He's impressed the staff there. But I think Dave Ziegler, Champ Kelly, they've done their homework. And I think that there is significant interest in Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, the thing with Hendon Hooker, man, his age, he's going to be 25, maybe 26 next year. And then he's coming back from an ACL injury. It's like, man,
tough.
like, do you want to, where are you going to draft him? You know what I mean? You're not drafting him in the first round, are you?
No.
You know,
he would be later.
Yeah, it would have to be like maybe third, fourth, maybe third, fourth.
Probably third.
You know, but who knows? You know, the teams are like desperate for QB, so they might fall in love with a Hendon Hooker and then draft him like in the second round or a late first. Who knows? But we'll see. I mean, and I see Severe. He says that, you know, Will Levis is turning 24. That's a good point. You know what I mean? He's a senior. He didn't play in the Senior Bowl, but he is 24 years old, and that's gonna, when you're projecting him, you know what I mean? Like, you got to take that into account as well. But he's still young. He still could get better. I mean, like you said, he didn't have a lot of talent in 2022 around him, on top of him playing with injuries, and it showed on the football field. The year before, he played way better. But we'll see, man. Like, at the end of the day, man, I like that McDaniels and Dave Z, they're looking to the draft. They're trying to they know that in today's NFL, to build an NFL team, all the great teams, for the most part, you know, have guys on rookie contracts, and they build that roster around them. Hopefully they're able to do this offseason or the next couple off seasons, because it's going to take some time to build that defense. But let's get into Champ Kelly, man. Like, let's get into like what his thoughts. You know what I mean? This is was he assistant GM for the Raiders? One of the guys they interviewed as a GM candidate last year before they hired Dave Z. And hey, man, thankfully the Raiders were able to get a guy like Champ Kelly. You're getting two GMs in one. And he had a really good interview with the Raiders media. And let me go play one of the sound bites here. And I think the first question I think he was asked, what does Champ Kelly and the Raiders, what are they looking for in a college QB?
I think you know, because quarterbacks are coming from different offense, and sometimes you're not comparing apples to apples, because some of it is college football versus what we're going to be doing in the pros. They may never even get into a huddle,
right,
in college. And so as we evaluate quarterbacks, like, it's, you know, processing, it's decision making, it's accuracy, you know, but a lot of it is that intangible things that you don't always see on tape. It's the communication with a teammate on the sideline. You know what I mean? It's how he communicates back from the field to the coach on the sideline. Can he process what the coach is trying to tell him? And so that's why going through this full process is so important, you know, when you're talking about adding a guy that you expect to lead your franchise.
So just hearing from Champ Kelly, like, these meetings between these quarterbacks, which are happening now, these next few days throughout the combine are going to be huge, especially for them to make their decision, because they're trying to project they're trying to project some of these players and how they would fit in their offenses, in their locker room, how they can coach them up. So guys like Anthony Richardson, as much as talent they have, if they feel like this dude doesn't get it or whatever the case may be, then obviously they're going to cross him off the list. So I thought it was interesting. He was pretty transparent about that. And then he also talked about, I thought it was a very good question. Ray pointed this one out. He said the most improvable traits. He was asked, what are the most improvable traits for a pro QB and a college QB?
Right. I think, footwork.
Yeah.
Is some of the things that a quarterback can get better at. It depends on the system that they come from. There's some ability to read and process. I think the command in which a quarterback has when they come in improves. Again, like I mentioned, some of these quarterbacks don't even huddle at all in college.
Right.
And so to be able to stand in front of, Rhett and Bucky and say, okay, we got ace left, 92 on 2, and then get into a huddle or get to a line of scrimmage and actually call the cadence, like that takes a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And so they grow in their command, but it takes time. Right. It takes time. Rarely do you walk off the college field, jump on the NFL playing field and have early success. It takes time and it takes patience. And that's like, this isn't microwave quarterback cooking.
What?
Like you got to put it in the oven and let it come out perfect.
Man. And you could take that, soundbite for however way you want to take it. But I mean, I took it as like, if, like, hey, they're going to tell, but I thought that interview was pretty interesting. But Bucky Brooks, after the interview was completed, he was like, man, like he went into pretty much a lot of detail, more than he expected, on how the process looks, what their thought process is when interviewing, future QB prospects or players that they're going to draft. But hey, man, when I hear taking your time and it's not like putting it in the microwave, you put it in the oven and man. I was thinking, the thing is, I'm thinking Anthony Richardson. I'm thinking like a guy that got supreme talent. You know what I mean? A lot of talent, a lot of clay to work with. And I'm thinking, man, that's someone that they probably are getting ready to possibly draft. But who knows, man? Like his draft stock, I think, is going to skyrocket, especially after the combine.
And you know what? Champ Kelly is a guy that I just think Raider Nation needs to be thanking the Lord that he's in our building, because even if there was a situation where Josh McDaniels was let go and Dave Ziegler decided to leave, I would be completely satisfied if Mark Davis said, hey, we're going to give Champ Kelly an opportunity to be the GM of the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, when you're talking about a football mind, an eye for talent, hearing his story, where he was coming from, how his road to the NFL became. I mean, this is a guy who's all in. He's all in for the Raiders organization. He absolutely loves being a Raider. And he's on it when it comes to bringing in good scouts. He's a guy who's all over Anthony Richardson, in my opinion, who brought Dave Ziegler out to Florida. And let's be honest, on those Florida teams, you're not traveling away from your team throughout the season if you're not intrigued by prospects. And on those two teams, outside of the skill position units that the Raiders already have, you're there for Hendon Hooker and you're there for Anthony Richardson. And he alluded to right away the things that are coachable. And immediately he went to footwork. And footwork has been the number one criticism of Anthony Richardson on short to intermediate throws. It's him leaning forward on his body, playing on his toes. And here in the sound clip, we're getting Champ Kelly telling you, hey, look, those issues that he has, they're very coachable. The things that you can't really coach that well, pocket awareness, the ability to move and evade pressure inside the pocket, the ability to keep your eyes downfield when the bullets are flying in front of you, the ability to fit the ball into tight window throws on the run. All those things apply to Anthony Richardson, and he's saying those areas of weakness are completely coachable. And look, if you watch film, turn it on. Anthony Richardson's issues are completely coachable. But like he said, you're going to have to put it in the oven and let it cook for a minute.
Right. And that's a great point too. And I caught that too the first time when he talked about some of the things that you can coach up, are pretty much, they kind of are similar to, AR-15's weaknesses. And let's be honest, the same I don't say excuse that you gave Will Levis, you could say the same for Anthony Richardson. He didn't really have a talented team around him.
No,
This
not
is
at
not
all.
one of the talented teams in the past that the Florida Gators have had. He didn't really have a whole lot of talent around him. The O-line wasn't really that good. You could really get on the coaching, whatever the case may be, but the talent is evident. So, and I just think, man, it's to me, he's that one guy like, hey, man, if the Raiders draft him, I'm going to have no problem if they draft him. If they went defense, I understand completely too. I understand that thought process. It's just going to be a tough year at that quarterback position if we're going to go in there with just Stidham and, I don't know, Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, who knows?
At this point, it just seems like the route it sounds like they want to go is young, and I don't think filling in this team. Say, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Say you take a 39, almost 40-year-old quarterback, someone who the Green Bay Packers organization has come out and pretty much said that they're done with. Why are we going to go and get these leftover quarterbacks? I get that we're in the AFC West, but this roster isn't in a position to compete for a Super Bowl next season. If that was the case, you would have to completely overhaul the defense, really land, not just throw money. I think that's a big misconception that goes around in the NFL is that, oh, well, we got free agency. We got a ton of money. We'll just allocate everything to the defensive side of the football. And all that sounds great and on paper. And if you're playing Madden, yeah, that sounds right. You can go out there and make those moves, but you have to make sure their scheme fits. You got to make sure that you're putting yourself in a good position in the future for the salary cap. And I don't think that the answer is free agency. I think the answer really is bringing in complementary pieces in free agency on the defensive side of the ball. Go get it like a Hargrave at the defensive tackle. Go out there and get a veteran middle linebacker. A guy two linebackers I'm big on. Okereke from Indianapolis Colts and also the Philadelphia Eagles, TJ Edwards, that hit him at middle linebacker, or go get a James Bradbury who's going to be a free agent. You go and plug in veteran key pieces, and then you build around them in the draft. And I think with the Raiders having 11 plus draft picks, I mean, this is where the Raiders can really take a turn for the better for the organization. And it starts with the draft. It doesn't start in free agency. So let's go out there. Let's go get a couple of veteran linebackers. Let's go get a veteran defensive tackle who can push the pocket on the interior so you can feel comfortable going out and getting your quarterback early on in the draft and really use that rookie deal to your advantage.
Yeah. No, and the thing is too is if you want to be real honest, the Raiders' issues on defense are not going to be solved this offseason.
No.
They could add some talent, but they're still going to have some issues next year because they couldn't address all their needs all in one offseason. It's going to probably take a couple of off seasons, good drafts, good free agent pickups for them to really become a good unit on the defensive side of the ball. Let's be honest. But that being said, they still can make the right moves. They still can get the right veterans, some good contracts. I don't want to see a Chandler Jones contract again. Man, let's just let's go for players in their prime. If we're gonna pay a player, let it be a player that's in their prime. Let's do that instead. I know James Bradbury, you threw that out there. Man, after having a really good season with the Philadelphia Eagles, his price tag is going to be pretty hefty. You think it's going to be worth it? Then you got a Jesse Bates at safety. I think he's a really good player. That's maybe a possible player that they might look into getting. How do you feel about that safety from the Eagles? Chauncey Gardner-Johnson?
Yeah, no, I would love to have him too because he's one of those guys, kind of like, Josh McDaniels talked about Trayvon Merrick, and Merrick is a guy that they have high hopes for. I think Trayvon moves around a lot. He's got bumped down in the nickel. He played that box role. He played back. Is split in the field with Duron Harmon, who's been huge for Trayvon Merrick. And I know at times Trayvon struggled, but I think that his second year in Patrick Graham's system, they have a lot of hope for him. And I think you pair him next to a Jesse Bates or a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And I think you're looking at the ability to put we need more guys who can go after the football. Okay. The Marcus Peters of the world who gets beat all the time, or Jalen Ramsey's who it's that 50-50. You're either getting beat or you're out here making a play on the ball. I think it's time that the Raiders make some moves for some guys that are going to be aggressive and take some chances on the football. I like a guy like Jesse Bates. If it had to come down to James Bradbury or Jesse Bates, I'm going to lean the $14 million a year contract for Jesse Bates probably. And then throughout the draft, since it's so deep at defense's back, specifically second round, third round, you can build it in that way and still be okay. But based off of what Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler were talking about when it came to the defensive back, I think this is a group that likes to add a few veterans and blend it with young talent. When you have a Nate Hobbs, you have a Sam Webb, you have an Amik Robertson, you know, you've got Tyler Hall as well that they extended throughout the year. I think instead of wasting high capital on the defensive back position, I think that they're going to bring in a few vets to kind of shore that up. That way they get it going on the ground. And I think you really fix that front seven. The front seven is the key for this offseason. I mean, they've got to nail the defensive tackle position in free agency. That should probably be the number one position is defensive tackle and probably linebacker and DB help.
No, it's definitely gonna, I would say, like I said, it's gonna take a couple of off seasons to improve the defense. But if you can shore up that front seven, it can make that defense look a lot better. It's gonna make the DBs play it's gonna make them play. It's gonna be easier for them. You're gonna make it easy for the cornerbacks to cover, the safeties to cover, and so on and so forth. So I think that, like, at the end of the day, like, hey, if we can get Jalen Carter at number 7.
I think with the car incident, in somebody passing away, unfortunately, I think
that's a tough pass, though. That's a tough pass. If he's there,
but I could see them taking him off the board completely. If I'm being honest with you, he's my number one player in the draft,
hands down. He's the best player in the draft.
I've told you that before, but it's like, can you handle that kind of situation coming to Vegas, specifically coming off of the Henry Ruggs situation? It's too soon. Yeah. And the talent, I would be running to the podium at 7 and turning it in for Jalen Carter, but I don't know.
I think Dave Z would probably want to draft him, but I think Mark Davis probably overrule and be like, nah, this is going to be a bad PR, whatever you want to call it. It's just not going to be a good look for the Raiders, especially with that. But, man, Jalen Carter, he would be the answer to the Raiders' prayers on defense, man. Like, combined.
Here's the thing: it might just be it might be a misdemeanor and a $1,000 fine. And does he fall out of the first round,
or it might be dismissed altogether? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of time from here to the draft. And here's the thing that's different about the Henry Ruggs situation. Look, Jalen Carter didn't kill anybody. Okay, right. He didn't hit them. None of that took place. He was next to the car racing, and something bad happened, and unfortunately 2 lives were lost. And he kind of told the police different reports, and that's what's kind of coming out now. So look, there's a lot of gray area in the situation. I kind of let these things play out because we don't have the whole story right now. But the big question is does he fall out of the first? Do people take him off the board? It's going to be something to monitor.
Yeah, I see some people in the chat saying that he's going to jail, and from what I understand, it's a misdemeanor. You know what I mean? So yeah. So and he hasn't really been convicted in anything. So let the process play itself out. We'll see what happens, and like you said, it's going to be it's a lot of time until the draft. You know what I mean? So a lot can change. But that being said, man, like if Jalen Carter, I know we've been talking about Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, and C.J. Stroud. If Jalen Carter's there at number 7, hands down, the Raiders got to take him. They have to take him. In my opinion, I think they got to take him. No. I'm just saying if let's say if there wasn't any off-field issues, and for whatever reason the teams traded up, they drafted their QBs, Jalen Carter, somehow, some way, people forgot about him. They
lost the card.
Hey, I'm just telling you, man, like Jalen Carter, bro. Imagine him with Max Crosby.
Oh, and not only that, but it would also unlock Chandler Jones, regardless of his age. I mean, you get a kind of push like that. A guy who fights off double teams, has excellent hands. You're talking about a generational talent at the defensive tackle spot, but it's like, I don't know. Like, but also at this point, do you feel like, in my opinion, I don't feel like the Raiders are in a position where they actually want to go out and get a Jimmy G or, maybe a guy like that. I think that their intention, maybe keep Chase Garbers on the practice squad, re-sign Jarrett Stidham to maybe a 2-year extension,
right?
2 to 3 year extension, and go out there and grab a rookie. So do you feel like at 7, the Raiders are almost pigeon-toed into taking a quarterback at that spot? Or do you think that maybe they would look later because you're really taking a gamble. If you don't take one at 7, you're really taking a gamble with a guy like a torn ACL, like a Hendon Hooker.
Right.
I mean, there's Jaron Hall, there's Clayton Tune. I mean, there's a lot of guys, that 3rd, 4th round that you could take, but they're not the prospects like at the top of the board.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about too, like if the Raiders actually even take a QB at number 7, like the next pick, do you address the front 7 or do you take the best DB on the board?
For the second round?
Second round, yeah.
Okay, so
I
I've got a
think
guy.
I think we can get someone in the front 7 and it'll be a nice player too.
No, I've definitely got a guy. I think since linebacker is actually kind of weak in this class when it comes to like a lot of depth, and we talked to Mark John when he was on our show, and he agrees. He would say that the linebacker class isn't that great.
Right.
The second round, there's going to be a guy who I think is still going to be on the board unless his combine just is ridiculous and a team really falls in love with him. But Trenton Simpson out of Clemson, linebacker who lines up at will, lines up on the outside, gets in the nickel. He is a guy who fits Patrick Graham's scheme like a glove. This is a guy who's around that 230 range, 235 range, that runs a sub 4.4, who can get after the quarterback, who can cover tight ends, who's extremely athletic. Like, is he going to play nickel? Is he going to play this coverage linebacker role? With the need that the Raiders have at the linebacker, if they go out there and get an Okereke, if they go out there and get a TJ Edwards, or a Tremaine Edmonds or a Levante David out in free agency, and you pair him next to a Trenton Simpson, what is something that Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler have been preaching this entire combine? It's we're going to get fast, explosive players that love football. You look at Anthony Richardson, complete explosive, dynamic playmaker. You go in round 2 and get a Trenton Simpson, a guy who you can throw all over the defense in that 3-4 role, and you can put him in nickel, will, you can sub him in, get him off the edge, explosive. He's going to run a sub 4.4. So look, I think Trenton Simpson is a guy. Now, is he going to come in? Is he better than Drew Sanders right off the bat? Probably not. But does he have more upside? Yes, in my opinion, just because you're able to be so versatile with him, and specifically in Patrick Graham's scheme, you're able to do a lot with him. So yeah, second round for me, Pharaoh, I've got Trenton Simpson circled.
Okay. So front 7. Front 7. Yeah, I think that we can get, whether it's linebacker or D lineman, I think that the Raiders can get a good player at that in that spot in the second round, in my opinion. But there are some corners in this draft. But I think that, do you think it's more top heavy, or do you feel like you can get a good DB in the later rounds?
Oh yeah, you can get a good DB in the later rounds. Now, obviously, you're going to have some decisions to make, because if I'm being honest with you, I think the second round pick, there is just going to be a vast amount of good players on the board, especially with the Raiders picking early in the second. I really think you're going to have your choice, like the Emmanuel Forbes, a guy who's a ball hawk playmaker. I think he's going to be sitting there in the second round. I think a guy like Trent Simpson, like I was just talking about, he's going to be sitting there in the second round. You have a lot of guys. Ringo, he's going to be sitting there. So you got a lot of guys in the second round that could be on the board, and the Raiders are going to really have a good choice. You could also go and address the interior of the offensive line, even though I don't think that's the direction the Raiders will go that early. But yeah, if you want to go get a good DB, this is a class that you can get third round, fourth round. Also tight end position, I don't see a guy like Foster Moreau being back. This is a tight end class that's just loaded with talent, and it's kind of pick your flavor with these guys. It's what do you want? Do you want a guy who can inline block? Do you want a vertical receiving threat? I mean, there's playmakers all over the place. So I expect the Raiders to go out and get a cheap, affordable tight end in free agency, but also go grab a young guy, because Darren Waller's contract will be expiring here. He will be in his 30s. So you have to start planning for that. And I don't think that there's a better draft than this one to go and do that.
Hey, but it seems like just reading between the lines, as far as the comments that Josh McDaniels was making about Darren Waller, he kind of gave a strong answer as far as his in the fact that Darren Waller's here to stay. So I know a lot of people were kind of like speculating that, oh, Darren Waller might get traded, Hunter Renfrow might get traded, full rebuild mode. That's not happening. It sounds like, from just judging by what Josh McDaniels say. Who knows? A lot can change from here and the start of the season, but I think a guy like If we can get a young QB and make the right man, look 11 picks, almost 50 million in cap space.
The Raiders are in a good spot, and if they
Like,
can get a rookie contract, the cap space heading
man.
into next year. So when that upside is about to set in, say you get an Anthony Richardson, that year 2, 3, 4 window that you're really banking on him to start developing, you're talking about 80 million to 100 million plus in salary cap to go out there and build around him. And I mean, this is what's intriguing about going out and getting a young quarterback. I mean, this is what the organization has needed for a couple seasons now is a fresh shot in the arm, a little bit of a rejuice, a retooling. And I know we threw around that phrase last year, the retooling, but I think the retooling really needed to happen at the quarterback position because that's where you get a complete new fresh air start.
Here's a thought. This
Okay.
this is I'm just gonna complete 180 crazy scenario, but I'm just connecting the dots, and I think I've seen someone else connect the dots as well because I've seen that Tom Brady is taking a year off from football, but also supposedly from football, but also from broadcasting because he signed a huge contract with, I think, was it Fox, to be an analyst for that, and he's going to be the lead analyst. He's going to be the Tony Romo of that network, but he's going to take a year off. So it kind of and he hasn't filed his retirement papers yet. I don't think officially. I think, or something to that effect where, I think he could have, helped Tampa Bay out by restructuring his contract so they won't give him a big hit. He still get his money, but it almost seems like, he's still kind of hanging in there just in case he changes his mind. So if Tom Brady all of a sudden was like, "Hey, look, I'm back," and you think that changes anything with the Raiders and how they approach the draft? I mean, in my opinion, I think they should still draft a QB. Maybe you don't draft them in the first round, but
here's the thing. I don't think it changes anything with the draft, and I think maybe he would sit back and say, let me see what you guys do in free agency. Let me see what you guys do in the draft. And maybe he comes back on a stupid cheap deal and comes and plays for a year and let a guy like Anthony Richardson or whoever the case may be develop. So he might be able to, don't make me the priority, don't make me the focus, go and build the team. Let me see what you do with what you're given. And maybe I'd be open to come in and play for you. But maybe he wasn't sold on the defensive side of the ball. And maybe he wants to see the moves that they make and if they really take that next step defensively and then make that decision of, hey, yeah, I think I could come and compete. But I see what you're doing there. I don't know if that is actually in the realm, but it might be.
Like, you know what I mean? Hey, if they make all the right moves in free agency and then, come to draft time, I think he's gonna have to come out before the draft. I don't think he's going to do it after draft. If he does it after the draft, then we'll see how that goes, especially if the Raiders go defense heavy, in the draft. Like, let's say, because we don't know what Dave Z's going to do. We don't know what they're going to do. Right now, they're saying all the right things. They're going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to talk to all the young QBs. But at the end of the day, like at number 7, they might draft a cornerback. A guy like Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, they might go a lot of different directions. You know what I mean? And if that happens, you're kind of leaving that opening for a guy like Tom Brady to be like, oh, okay, I see the moves for him to come back. I'm just throwing it out there. It was just a random thought because I was thinking about this for a while. I'm like, man, he hasn't really, why are you taking a year off from I think it was a crazy contract. I don't know if anybody has the numbers for that contract. Sean Schefter Johnson, if you're in the chat, if you could put in the numbers, give me the numbers of Tom Brady's contract with Fox. I think he as a lead analyst for them. But yeah, man, I'm just throwing it out there because it just seems like the Raiders they have to take a QB this draft.
Yeah, and I don't think the Tom Brady thing is going to happen. I think that's an interesting and compelling way to kind of look at maybe possibly. I'm pretty sure though he definitely filed that paperwork. And I think if you go out there and make a move, you bring in CJ, you bring in Will, you bring in Anthony Richardson. I think you put a hyper focused attention on those guys. I think you let them get those bumps and bruises because, like you alluded to earlier, Will Levis is 24 years old. Like, does he really have to sit for a year? I don't think so. You know, they're at that age. Hendon Hooker, 25 years old. You know, a guy like Anthony could take that time. You know, he's 21, 22.
Yeah, and then something that we actually haven't talked about too as well is Dave Z. Dave Z spoke as well. You know, he said all like the stuff that we kind of already knew, but he also kind of like brought up a point that, you know, that we kind of knew as well, but it was good to hear him say it, was the fact that they're going to have you know, Devontae Adams evolved and you know, pick who's going to be that next quarterback for the Raiders. You know, they're going to take his input into account when making that decision. Obviously, they're going to make the final decision, but they're going to keep him in a loop. So it's going to be interesting when like maybe see Anthony Richardson's name, he's gonna be like, oh, that dude's trash. Come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or you know, he might root for a guy like CJ Stroud, maybe because he's a little bit more ready, you know what I mean, to contribute right away. We talked to Marcus Johnson a couple weeks ago. He said there's going to be adjustment period, but hey, he's a guy that, you know, if you're going to take someone at that spot, be a good pick to pick up. He's a safe bet. I'm kind of, let's swing for the fences. Let's swing.
That's where I'm at. If you're gonna take a chance, I'm willing to just throw. I'm willing to throw the dice. I don't want to be safe anymore. You know, like we have to find that generational quarterback that's going to turn the face of this franchise. That has the ability to just bring something dynamic to the league. That is up there with those upper echelons of quarterbacks. And Anthony, to me, is the guy in the draft that can do that. It's not going to be right away, but if Devontae Adams is worried about Anthony Richardson year one, I think Josh would just have to sit him down. Dave would have to sit him down. Dave Ziegler alluded to the relationship that he said that he has the best player to professional position relationship that he's ever had with a player, with him and Devontae Adams. And I think if they sat down, they turned on the film, Dave could be like, hey, look at this kid when the pocket breaks down, something that struggled this year, and look at his eyes downfield. Look at his ability to make guys miss, find open lanes down the field. And even in the small sample size of someone like Jarrett Stidham, who came in and created with his legs against the 49ers, that open window throw where Jarrett Stidham rolls out left and gets smacked by a 49ers defensive player, but created a running lane, created a window to throw Devontae Adams open. And Devontae Adams, working with Aaron Rodgers in times past, knows how to work with a quarterback who can create with his legs and keep his eyes downfield. So you could sell Anthony Richardson to Devontae Adams. He throws an extremely beautiful deep ball. His intermediate passes are extremely accurate. I know he gets accuracy issue claims, but a lot of that comes from his short. It comes from the mechanics of those routes from 5 to 10 yards. Those intermediate balls, 15, 20, 45, 60 yards down the field, he can make some wow throws on a line.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because he's pretty accurate throwing it deep. And then also, I seen a stat. It was I forgot who posted that, but it was about, I guess, accuracy on the intermediate part of the field. And Anthony Richardson was up there as I think it was it Bryce Young? I think Bryce Young was first, and then he was number 2 as far as accuracy goes. His issues was kind of weird is short passing.
Yeah,
his
it's
accuracy
mechanics. It's the mechanics. It's his footwork is a little odd. He's very toesy, kind of in the pocket. He likes to get on his tippy toes a little bit. Likes to really lean forward heavy on that lead leg, which brings that back foot up, which that's where his issues, specifically in the screen game, those check downs, it creates a lot of accuracy issues when your weight isn't distributed right, when your footwork is sloppy. But all those things are coachable. That's what makes him such an intriguing prospect. And I'm mad. I'm mad that everybody's kind of caught on to the Anthony Richardson train. Yeah. Because I think people are starting to realize, like, hey, there's a lot to work with this guy. And his stock after Saturday, after he throws and after he runs, his stock is going to skyrocket. So you might even talk about a situation where he's not on the board at 7. And if that's your guy, you might have to move up a couple spots and go get him.
Yeah, but let's flip it now. Let's flip it now, because look, at the end of the day, like, all right, Anthony Richardson, he hasn't had a lot of experience. You know, like, he still needs some time to develop. And the Raiders could probably take the best defensive player on the board. Someone's going to drop. Some of these teams are going to trade up. They're going to draft their guy, a guy to get the CJ Strouds, the Bryce Youngs, even the Anthony Richardsons. You know, there's going to be teams that are picking ahead of us that been connected to a QB, like a Detroit Lions, like a Seattle Seahawks. You know what I mean? They might look at Anthony Richardson and be like, okay, so if he's not there, then we take defense. And now if we take defense, who's the guy later in the draft that we could target at the Q? Because Because at that point, there's no one good enough where you could take at number 7 at that QB spot. But obviously, defense would be an easy answer either way. Like, how would you go about it? How would you wait
I
till
think
like
if
the
you
mid
get to
round?
I think if you get to number 7 and your guy isn't there, CJ, Anthony, Will, they're all gone. I would highly, highly recommend the Raiders to trade back. I think you let somebody come up to 7 and let somebody take a risk on a defensive player, maybe a wide receiver. Like, I don't know. There's going to be somebody up there. Maybe a Tyree Wilson falls and gets past the Seahawks. You know, there's going to be a couple players sitting there at 7. Obviously, you're the 7th pick in the draft. Let a team come
You
up.
heard about Tyree Wilson? He wants to be a Raider.
Yeah. I think you let somebody come up, and I think you let them take that 7th pick, and you add to those draft picks that you have. Maybe you can pick up another second. Maybe you can pick up a second and a third. Whatever it's going to be for a team, maybe lower in the first round who wants to come up and grab their guy. You have to listen to it. And I think if you can get in that 13 range, 14 range, a guy like Devon Witherspoon, who's sitting there in the middle of the round, I think you grab him and you stack up on some of those picks and really attack the second round. Because I think, honestly, Pharaoh, I think the second round and the third round, it's going to be so rich with talent on the defensive side of the football that you're going to see a lot of really good players slip a little bit and fall between the cracks. Interior offensive line at the guard spot. Um, like I was saying earlier, tight ends. Like, there's going to be a lot of really, really good football players in the second and third round. And if I know Dave Ziegler and Champ Kelly, like I think I do, they're going to stockpile as many picks, and they're going to be open to trading down if a quarterback isn't on the board.
And it's crazy. We're talking about the draft and we're talking about all the possibilities, but free agency needs to happen. And when free agency happens, it gets a little bit more clear. At the end of the day. Like, they'll, we can probably, I won't say predict what they're going to do, because Dave Z, we don't know what his tendencies are. So we don't hear all the in the past when we hear the rumors about the Raiders. Like, for some reason, Raiders, whoever they like, it usually just leaks for some reason. I don't know what it was. People had guys in that building, but since Dave Z's been in the building with Josh McDaniels, none of the beat writers, no one really can predict what they're going to do next.
Dave Z is the kind of guy that I could see him, we just get a random update day 2 of free agency that they trade for Leonard Williams. They don't even go out there and address somebody that's on the free agent market. They go out there and make a trade for a guy who's under contract already. Go grab a Leonard Williams, and you gave up whatever the capital was for that. And then also at that 7th spot, then trade down and get a lot of those picks back. Like, he's aggressive, which is a thing that I love about Dave Ziegler, because we haven't seen it in times past with Raiders GMs, is the ability to be aggressive, to be frugal and fruitful with spending money in free agency. If you have a guy, go pay him the money and deal with it, front load the contract so you can get out of it in coming years. He's done a really good job. I know the Chandler Jones contract was pretty blown out of proportion, but when you look at how things are structured, there's cap hit and then there's cash. And I think a lot of people, that gets swept underneath the rug. A lot of these deals are front loaded, or they're paid out in a way that the bonus and the cash is equal pay. So that cap hit stays at a neutral level for years to come. It's very similar to the way that Kansas City has negotiated deals. They'll give guaranteed cash and then a cap hit. And that way they spread it out over time. And it's kind of like a pay as you go type of contract. So Dave Ziegler has done a remarkable job with the cap situation. If you look next year, they're $100+ million right now in spending. So yeah, I'm looking for quality signings over the sexy big name signings. We kind of seen the Devontae, we kind of seen the Chandler Jones last year. We extended Darren, extended DC, extended Hunter. I mean, they kind of put a lot of money out there. Go get an Okereke, go get a TJ Edwards, go get these guys that are depth pieces. Go get a corner that thrives in man coverage. Maybe go take a chance on a Chauncey Gardner or a Levante David at $9 million a year. There's so many routes, which makes this offseason so fun. Right now in free agency, we've got an outline of a picture of what it could look like. After free agency, that picture's been colored in a little bit.
Man, I can't wait for the Raiders to have a top defense. Man, I don't think I've ever seen the Raiders have a top defense, to be honest with you. Like top 5, top 10, and I'm talking about legit top 10, top 5. I mean, like, dominant, and I haven't seen it. And it's crazy when you look at the Raiders' history. Defense is a part of the Raiders' mystique. You know what I mean? The past great teams were great defensively, so they need to get back to that, man. They need to get back to that, and the way it starts is by like attacking free agency with good, like you said, good defensive signings and the draft. So I wouldn't even be mad if they if they went defense first, 2-3 picks, and then drafted a QB maybe in the 4th round. I wouldn't be mad at it. As much as we talked about Anthony Richardson and all these QB prospects, and at the end of the day, like there's so many different, like there's so many holes on this team. Like it's
That's what I love about the offseason is there's so many ways that you could attack this. And I think that not the plan A for the Raiders isn't even necessarily going to go through. This is going to be the Raiders organization have plan A, B, C, D, and probably E.
Yeah.
And you're going to probably have to grab from each one of those plans to get your final product that is going to be the 2023 Raiders. And that's what I absolutely love about free agency. But for me personally, I'm a huge draft guy. I love finding players, circling them on my big board. I think we're going to have a really good draft show because my goal is to get a big whiteboard put up here, guys that I want, have them circled. And as we go through the draft, like, hey, if we can land this guy, if we can land this guy. So
hey, man,
it's going to be really good. But here, let me throw up the banner. We've had a lot of good conversation, but I kind of want to get the chat involved here as we're kind of in the last segment of the show. So I want you guys to drop your questions below. And look, we got our first super chat. So super chats will always get read first because we just really appreciate those who decide to donate. So if you want to super chat, show support to the show, I highly appreciate that. Trucker Mark says the last great defense.
Let's give him a little horn right there.
Yeah. 1983, 1984, which equals far too long. It's been way too long since the Raiders have had a good defense. So yeah, let's get that addressed. I would love to see a extreme focus. I like the hire that they just made, former Ravens outside linebackers coach, and a player in free agency, Tremaine Edmonds, over there in Baltimore, has history with this coach. I mean, you could kind of connect the dots a little bit. Tremaine Edmonds would be a big grab.
I'm sure that's not the reason why they hired him.
No.
He probably offered a lot.
Connection.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, but I get that. Yeah, but yeah, he's a guy that's proven that he could develop young talent.
Right.
At that, in that position group, the front seven, the D lineman. Obviously, he was the outside linebacker coach for the Ravens. We'll see how what happens, but at the end of the day, man, like Trucker Mark, I appreciate you supporting us with that super chat, man. Last great defense, 1983, 1984, digital press in the building.
That's good.
Let's give him a little horn, man. I appreciate you coming through, brother. But yeah, man. Hey, man, that's a long time. It's a long time.
Anthony Provencio says, yes, T. The way I see it, we shouldn't be drafting in the top 10 in a very long time. I believe, in my opinion, CJ Stroud is a slam dunk. Go get him. And hey, look, to be honest with you, I'm not going to be upset with any of the 3 selections at quarterback. I just will have different excitement levels, if that makes sense. I'm going to be happy with they could grab Will Levis, and I'm still going to be happy because I do see on film, I see why they would take him. But my excitement meter for each one, I would say Anthony is the top for me. CJ Stroud is the middle. Will Levis is the third option for me, in my opinion. And to be honest with you, I would still go Will Levis over like a Jimmy Garoppolo, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, has Jimmy Garoppolo been in the league and more experience and knows Josh McDaniel's scheme and system and all of that? Of course. But look, I'm ready for a fresh start. Get a rookie deal in there. Build around a guy. If you believe in him, go get him.
I'd rather go defense. I'd rather go defense
than Will Levis.
Yeah, because I feel like he's like their last option. Because I bet you their draft board, if Bryce Young is somewhere in there, CJ Stroud is somewhere up there, obviously, and then you got Anthony Richardson. He's kind of the classic boomer bust, super talented, high ceiling quarterback. And then you got like the safe pick in CJ Stroud. Then in Bryce Young, he's the number 1 pick that we haven't really talked about too much because we don't think he's going to be there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he has his size concerns, but the guy is probably the most ready quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, no, and I think if you're sitting there at the board and Will Levis is the only quarterback left, I think a team like Carolina sitting at 9 might be a team that might come up and be willing to negotiate with the Raiders at 7 and go out there and get Will Levis, and then you can move down 2 spots, accumulate a draft pick, go grab a defensive player. So I see, yeah. If Will Levis is there, that's where I'm more. Anthony and CJ are like, okay, go get one of those guys. If Will Levis is the only one on the board, that's where like, okay, I'm about to listen to the phone calls coming into Las Vegas because I would be flexible of moving out of that spot, and maybe somebody's really high on Will and is willing to move up and give me some capital to go get him. So
Oh yeah, and it's funny too. There's a lot of teams that are quarterback needy that are picking after us. You got obviously as of right now the Panthers. We heard things about the Falcons, possibly the Ravens. Who knows what that situation is going to look like? Even I've heard the Patriots met with Anthony Richardson, so they're looking at the QB talent because Jones. And I hope it's not a situation where like Jones get traded to the Raiders. That would be just
oh.
My
Okay,
God.
Will Levis or Mac Jones, who are you taking?
What is it? What are we giving up for Mac Jones? If we give it a 4th round, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah,
And
probably.
then just draft defense. Just draft defense, draft
What if it's a
trenches.
third?
Because man, because we can get a good quality starter. You know what I mean? Third, if we can give him like a 4th, a
Fourth, maybe a fourth and a 7th.
And Jones is on a rookie contract. And if it
Yeah,
doesn't work out,
that's the
you can
only upside for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then like, look, he's familiar with the system. Obviously, it's not a sexy pickup or whatever, but it's going to be a cheap contract, and then you can focus all your resources on building a team around him, with defense, offense, offensive line, and then you give him a 1-year tryout. It doesn't work out. Guess what that 2024 draft is going to be offering?
Exactly.
A lot of QBs. So I actually kind of like it.
Yeah,
If it's
I
a
do
4th
too.
round pick, if it's like 3rd round pick and oh my God, I don't want to do it. To be honest with you.
Yeah. The Raider Room, and if you guys haven't, man, smash this video with a like. You know, everybody that's in the building, we should have matching likes on this video. Completely free show. We just ask that you support us. Go subscribe to Pharaoh NFL. Go subscribe to Real Raider Ray. Run up the likes. You know, when the live stream does end, go leave a comment. It boosts this video up. The algorithm helps other Raider fans find the show, makes your experience and our experience that much better. But if you haven't followed the Raider Room, go follow the Raider Room on Instagram. Remarkable. I love what they're doing over there. So go over there, follow the Raider Room. Raider Room says, let's get Bobby Okereke and still bring back.
Before you start this, everybody, just hit that like button. Come on, just hit it one time. It's so easy. Like he said, the algorithm is very real. So we want to keep coming back and to do this. So it really helps if you could just hit that like button. And if you really like the show, make sure to hit that notification bell. Like Ray said, we go live on both each other's channel. We switch it up. This week it's on his channel. Next time we go live, it's going to be on my channel. So you want to make sure you subscribe to both of our channels. Mods, if you're in the building, please make sure to post the links. We really appreciate it. But yeah, man, hey, let's get to Raider Room, and salute to Raider Room, man. If you haven't follow him on IG, man, has one of the best IGs out there when it comes to Raider news, Raider facts, everything Raider related on his channel.
He says, let's get Bobby Okereke and still bring back Perryman. Shore up the linebacker room. This would make our linebacker core really good. Now, I love this. I love Bobby Okereke. And if you're going to bring somebody back, look, I would almost go get Okereke and TJ Edwards and then go out there, like I said earlier in the live show, in the 2nd round, go grab a Trenton Simpson. Okay. You get those 3 linebackers, and you are talking about a completely revamped, revitalized Raiders linebacker core. 2 players, Okereke and TJ Edwards, who are just stepping into their prime, coming off the best years of football in their careers. Just thriving right now. You go get those 2 young guys ready to go, ready to roll right away, and then you go get a Trenton Simpson and you move him along that line, an athletic freak, an athletic specimen that can get after the quarterback, cover out of the nickel. Is that coverage linebacker that you're kind of looking at to develop and groom, something that Divine Diablo has not been?
Mm-hmm.
You really have an opportunity to develop this linebacker room. And if they were to go get Okereke and Edwards, which I would be okay if they went and got both of them, at least come away in free agency with one of them. If you can come away with Okereke or Edwards, I will be ecstatic. And it really gives you a foundation to build that linebacker room. But Raider Room, I like where your head is at. I really do.
Yeah, facts 100%, man. But T Severe in the building says CJ Stroud is Burrow-esque. good, but not great arm strength, technically sound, mobile as a last resort, and confident with a swagger and a leader. Both play with elite talent at wide receiver in school. Hey, man, like I said, I'm not gonna be mad if the Raiders draft CJ Stroud. I'm not gonna be mad. Now, is he my favorite QB on the board? No. I mean, I'm gonna go with Anthony Richardson. I just like the high ceiling. I like the high potential. But am I gonna get mad if the Raiders draft CJ Stroud? No, not at all. I'm just looking at everybody in the AFC as far as QBs goes, specifically our division with Justin Herbert. Are any of these QBs, are they gonna be better than Mahomes or Justin Herbert? You know what I mean? At that point, you're gonna start projecting, and can you project these players to be better? And when you think of an Anthony Richardson, you're like, man, dude is 6'4", 232, 40, great arm, got pocket presence. Dude's running over players. I know people are questioning his accuracy, but if you look at him, look at the tape, you look at the film, the guy is accurate in certain parts of the field. He needs to fix up his footwork. We just played a clip for you with Champ Kelly breaking down what are traits that QBs can improve on, and one of those traits was footwork. And now if you start connecting the dots, you guys can understand where we're coming from.
Anthony is one of those guys I'm willing to be patient with. Like, I know what I'm getting year one, and it's going to have some ugliness, but it's going to show a lot of flashes of why you took this guy this high.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a guy I'm okay. Like I said, when I'm scouting a player, I'm looking 5 years and I'm looking into that second contract. Who's going to be the best player out of these quarterbacks come the second contract? You could make the argument it's Bryce Young, but I would put Anthony Richardson right up there with him just because if his upside hits, if the light comes on for him at the next level, and we've seen players have far better professional careers than what they did collegiate careers. I mean, look at our own roster. Look at a guy like Max Crosby out of Eastern Michigan. Comes in and now is one of the best edge defenders in the NFL. This is a guy who went in the 4th round. Nobody was talking about him being the best edge defender in college football. Hunter Renfrow becoming one of the better slot wide receivers in the National Football League. Nobody was looking at Hunter Renfrow in the 5th round saying, hey, that guy's going to be one of the better slot wide receivers. I mean, you can have a better professional career than collegiate career, and I think Anthony Richardson is going to fall into that category. But yeah, T. Severe, I'm not going to be mad if they take CJ Stroud. I've openly come here on the show and said, hey, look, I like CJ Stroud. I like his game. I like the swagger. I like the confidence. So I'm not gonna be mad either way. Just a different type of excitement level.
Yeah, facts.
Daniel Kim says, what are your guys' thoughts on Consi? Sanjeet put out 2 fire videos about him. Yeah, he just broke the 40-yard dash for a defensive tackle. This is a guy who's getting comps statistically to Aaron Donald all the time when Aaron Donald was coming out collegiately. Look, if you're sitting there at 7, if he continues to climb up this board and your quarterback's not there, I'm completely okay with taking him at 7. I think
at 7.
I think if the Raiders don't address that, I think his get off the line of scrimmage, he's the most explosive off of the line. I mean, outside of the Jalen Carters, but off the line and his ability
so
to use his hand,
he's definitely going to go first round.
I think he's going to shoot. 100%. I think he's going to shoot up boards. I really do. I think him, Tyree Wilson, a lot of these guys are going to go a lot higher than what I think a lot of people think.
Yeah, I think a bigger question marks was about his size, but he came in kind of bigger than what they thought, and then obviously he was explosive.
Yeah,
he actually ran a faster time than
Aaron Donald.
By Aaron Donald by 0.1001, yeah. But it was the fastest 40-yard time since 2003 for a D tackle. So he's putting on a show.
Yeah, he's one of those markets that's really heated up. Raider Nation 510 says AR-15 trade up. You might have to. If he goes out here and kills it in the combine on Saturday and just boosts his stocks and crushes the interviews, which Farrell told me that there was a report that he has been killing it in the interviews.
Yeah, so, I don't know if you want to show that, but I mean it's not too crazy, but
yeah, no, we don't have to, but yeah, Raider Nation reports is that Anthony Richardson is killing it when it comes to the interview process. So that's great. That's a great sign. That fires me up. Salty Cracker says Levis put mayo in his coffee. Can't sign him. That's bro. Best defensive player available if Richardson, Stroud, Young are gone by 7th, then Hooker in the 2nd or 3rd. Yeah. No, yeah. I think that would be a very realistic route. Edgar says next year's quarterback class is legit. It is. It is 100% legit. I think, though, that the Raiders would be wise to take a quarterback this year. And if it's a disaster, you land in the top 7 again next year, then go ahead and go grab your guy and maybe trade up for one. So
Right.
I want the Raiders to take a quarterback. If it fails, it fails, but you have to swing for the fences.
Mm-hmm.
Hendon Hooker, second round. Second round might be a little rich, to be honest with you. It might be.
25, 26-year-old QB come off of ACL.
He's going to probably land in the third. I really think
Yeah.
so. CJ Stroud at pick 7, possibility. Hooker gives me Watson vibes minus the massage parlors. Hey, if he turns out to be a Deshaun Watson, then the Raiders nail that.
Hey, he was a Heisman candidate last season.
No, I like Hendon Hooker a lot. Now, don't let me saying maybe second, third round. It's just because of the injury issue. Outside of that, huge hands, extremely tall, extremely athletic, shoots the ball down the field. He's got everything that you want in a quarterback.
Good deep ball too. Good
deep
ball.
ball.
Yeah.
Very accurate, able to play in a pro style offense. So Hendon Hooker is definitely somebody that's on their board. And actually the Raiders have met with Hendon Hooker. So yeah, he's definitely an option on the table. Hey, maybe you see a situation where he's sitting there on the board at the 3rd and the Raiders are like, why not grab him? Maybe grab him. I don't know. Again, obviously, as I stated above, I want CJ, but I'll support and give Zeke the benefit of the doubt, whoever is the QB. Yeah, I mean, I'm supporting whoever we go grab. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, for sure.
I enjoy this whole process. I really do. So, trade down for Joey Porter. The thing about Joey Porter, he's definitely he's not the first DB. Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon, these are guys that I have above Joey Porter for sure.
You got Witherspoon number 1?
On my board, personally, yes. And then I've got Gonzalez second.
Okay.
Just based off of what I want. I mean,
but the ceiling for Gonzalez is kind of.
But a guy like Tariq Woolen was for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Forbes, he might be there in the second. This is a turnover machine. This is what the Raiders need. They need a guy who can go out there and get their hands on the football and create turnovers for this offense, especially if you're going to go and grab a rookie quarterback. You're going to have to make up for a few mistakes. So getting playmakers on the defensive side of the football, Emmanuel Forbes, circle him on your list, Raider Nation. Put him on your big board. Emmanuel Forbes is going to be a guy that you want. So I've got Devon Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez. Then you throw in the Joey Porters. It can kind of flip-flop based off of your taste and what you want, size, measurables, what they bring to this scheme specifically. Emmanuel Forbes is going to be a guy I got.
It's something to keep in mind. The only returning starter next year is Nate Hobbs. Everybody else is either going to be a free agent, not coming back. Obviously, Amik Robinson is one of
he's on the contract, I thought, right?
He's on the contract, but he's not a starter, though.
No.
He's not a starter. It's not someone that you're going to pencil in as a starter. He's a good depth piece. He played well last year in spots, but I wouldn't pencil him day one, first game of the season as a starter for the Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders. I want that to happen. So I think, in my opinion, you got to look at how they're going to address the cornerback room for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Raider Nation says Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell is a very, very interesting linebacker prospect. I believe out of Iowa. He has a Raider written all over him. I like this guy. Thumper. This is a guy also. Look, I know a lot of people are high on Drew Sanders, but there's a couple other guys that I think fit this scheme and system maybe even better. I think Trent Simpson is going to be more of a PG guy. Jack Campbell just seems like a Raider. Maybe if you don't go get an Okereke or Edwards or a Tremaine Edmonds, one of these types, maybe you go out there and grab a Jack Campbell later in the draft. Just another DJ says, I hope I didn't miss too much, but I'm glad to catch a live. We appreciate you for coming in and pulling up.
To you, brother. Appreciate you coming through.
So, yeah, if you missed anything, just rewind. Catch the replay. It helps us. Aziz Al-Jair is another interesting cheap option. Yeah, 100%. You can go out there and grab him. Thoughts on a right tackle? I think Edgar, we re-signed Jermaine Illuminor. I know Raider Nation might be hit or miss on him, but Jermaine Illuminor was a guy I was high on. I think he came in and did a very serviceable job. He's going to be extremely affordable. And I think he fits this scheme and system. If he can kind of clean up the penalties, I think a lot of people forget that was his first year starting full time at right tackle. So, yeah, there's a lot of growing pains, a lot of learning the cadence and timing of the snap that he struggled with. If he can get those penalties cleaned up, I think that Jermaine Illuminor is the right tackle. I think right guard is the biggest free agent. If you're looking at the offensive line or in the draft, I think those guard positions are what you really need to look at.
You think it's a real possibility the Raiders go draft their own lineman? with the number 7 pick? I mean, there's been some mock drafts where people are connecting them to the draft.
Yeah, I think those people don't know what they're talking about. That's what I think. I mean, if it does, I mean, that'd be a huge disappointment for me. If you're gonna do that, you got to trade down for sure.
It's not a sexy pick for sure.
Nah. Daniel Kim says, hit the likes and the bell notification. The Raiders discussion is always fire. We appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah, Ika, a defensive tackle, he's going to be one of those, second round type of guys you might have to take a look at. It might be too rich for me at the top of the second round. I think that there's still going to be some guys there that can really come in and make plays, that, especially if you address the defensive tackle market in free agency. It just depends. Really deep, like Pharaoh alluded to earlier, free agency is really going to elude and answer a lot of questions that we have. Raider Way says, Anthony Richardson. I agree. AR-15 comes with a big bust potential. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, boomer bust, man. Boomer bust. But, man, like I said, I started this show by saying when you're in the division in AFC West with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and obviously AFC overall with all these quarterbacks, why settle for a quarterback's potential to be good? Why don't? Because if you look at Anthony Richardson, I know there's possible chance that he could be a bust, but so can any other pick. So why don't you swing for the fences when it comes to Anthony Richardson? Because he does a lot of things that you can't teach. And some of the things that you say that is a weakness can be improved on, like his footwork and things that we talked about earlier.
Well, let's look at the landscape of all the top quarterbacks in the NFL right now. When Patrick Mahomes was coming out, he wasn't getting all this hype at the top 7 picks in the draft. The Chiefs traded up at the back end of the first, or traded up in the first to go out and get Patrick Mahomes, and a lot of people thought it was a questionable move. Talk about Josh Allen. Talk about Jalen Hurts. I mean, we could start going down the list of guys who, all the draft gurus were like, this guy, he's not ready yet. He's not this. He's not that. Yeah. And they're coming out and they're dominating the league right now. So I feel like when I start seeing those same conversations with a guy like Anthony Richardson, I'm almost willing to take that gamble.
Yeah, I am too, man.
Let's see here. I'm afraid of AR-15 being Tim Tebow 2.0. Look, don't let the helmet in the same school. They're two different human beings, two different eras of football.
I think they both were number 15, right?
Yeah, two different eras of football, two different quarterbacks, different situations. Like, Tim Tebow wasn't coming into Devontae Adams and Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs, and it's just a completely different situation. I get it. Both 15, both Florida Gators, both Josh McDaniels connection. I get it.
And Tebow played on great Florida teams that won national titles.
Yeah, AR didn't have that.
He didn't have that talent. Obviously, it's obvious when you just watch the players. You could just see the talent. Like, you could just see it's pretty evident. It's different. And I know a lot of people are like scared of drafting a guy that could be a boomer bust pick because they have Jamarcus Russell in their nightmares because he was a big bust. But that's a totally different type of situation, because if you remember when Jamarcus Russell got drafted to the Raiders at number 1 pick, he got drafted to the Raiders at the time, and we were, I mean, you can argue we're still kind of dysfunctional, but back then, very dysfunctional. We didn't have the type of infrastructure for a guy like Russell, because I bet you if Russell went to a different franchise, I'm not sure if he would be a big bust, because there would be a system in place where they would hold players like that accountable. And it's crazy to say that. I understand that, but that's on the Raiders too. As much as Russell being a bust, it's also it's on him being a bust as well, like not being that player, but also the Raiders too as well. Like they weren't like the best at developing players. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? They draft all these players in the draft, but you can only pick. There's probably less than a handful of players you could pick out and be like, oh, that's a guy that developed and became a great player. There's only a couple of players you could point to, and it just so happens that Jamarcus Russell didn't turn out well, but you can't just put that on future players like a guy like, because it could be a whole totally different player. AR-15, if he's killing the meetings, you know what I mean? If he's talking like Champ Kelly, we played those clips on purpose. The reason why we played the Champ Kelly play, if you guys missed it, just watch the replay. We played a couple of clips from the Champ Kelly interview. Check it out. He had an interview with Bucky Brooks and I forgot the other host, but it was with Raiders Media, and it was a pretty good in-depth interview. And he talked about like what he looks for in a QB, what are the QB traits that can be improved on, and you kind of almost can project that the Raiders can possibly take a guy like Anthony Richardson and be successful.
Yeah, 100%. The Raider Room says, what round is a guard from Florida supposed to go? I believe he's going to be in the back end of the first. I believe a lot of people have him super high on the boards, but I've also seen him push back late into the first. So we'll see. It's just going to see a lot of those teams like Tennessee, those teams that need offensive line help. That's where you're going to see probably the back end of the first. Some of these guys go. AR-15 is about his business. I agree. I could see Seattle take an AR-15, would move up to 3 and go get him. Yeah, Seattle loves those athletic freaks. Seattle's been killing it in the draft.
I know. I can see Seattle drafting him. I can see the Detroit Lions, because as much as the quarterback over there, I forgot his name,
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff, he's played well for them. A guy like the offensive coordinator over there that was possibly we're going to get some head coaching opportunities this year, decided to come back. Ben Johnson, he might be looking at Anthony Richardson and being like, oh, the possibilities, because Ben Johnson is probably one of the best offensive coordinators in football last year. That Detroit Lions offense, which is surprising, but they were playing well last year, and I could see them getting a young QB. That's an up and coming team Detroit got over there, so I could see them drafting a guy that they can probably have Jared Goff, be the quarterback for 1 year, and then in comes Anthony Richardson that second year. But
yeah, I just see them loving DBs. I see them loving defensive prospects. They've built a remarkable defensive line.
I hope so.
Yeah, I just hope they continue to build and add on to it because they have an extreme defensive philosophy over there. So let's just hope they take defense. Seattle, though, they take those athletic freaks. So Anthony Richardson, Tyree Wilson, Concy, all those guys, like they're going to be intriguing. I feel you, Ray. I'm super high on him and safety Sidney Brown out of Illinois. Okay, you're doing your homework. A little bit of depth there at the safety position.
Okay.
Sean Johnson says linebacker Ivan Pace Jr., linebacker Owen Popo. Tien says we need a right guard. I hear that we're going to move Mumford to right tackle and move Jermaine to right guard. I don't know how much I like that, if I'm being completely honest with you. Man, you guys are blowing up the chat. Let me scroll down to the bottom here, and you guys can resubmit your questions.
Yeah, Mumford, I don't think he solidified that spot for them to be like confident for him to come back next year. I mean, it's a possibility he could fight for that spot, but yeah, I do like Illuminor coming back on a cheap contract, especially with all our needs.
Yeah. It's going to suck if AR-15 is torching our defense in 2 years. Facts. Yeah.
White Puma jabroni forever.
I'd be a lot more confident if we trade up for a quarterback that tells me that the staff sees something that's their guy. Yeah, you want to get behind somebody, you want to rally, you want to show a guy that we're all in with you. And I think the show's pretty evident on who we're all in on. So, man,
yeah,
look,
I think what's going to happen. I just don't think the Raiders are going to have a chance to draft him.
You think he's going to go before 7?
I think either some of the teams in front of us are going to take him, or someone's going to trade up in front of us. Because I don't. Do you see? All right, let's say if the Raiders guy was Anthony Richardson, do we trade up for him?
100%. I think you have to. I think Chicago. I could see trading out. I think the team that's going to move up is the Colts. So Colts will go from 4 to 1. Bears will drop to 4. So I've got the Colts taking probably Bryce Young, with them hiring the Eagles offensive coordinator as their head coach. They're going to grab Bryce Young.
Hey, I've seen Colts being connected to Anthony Richardson too, because the Colts coach Jalen Hurts, so he's familiar with coaching up and those.
Well, then he might not have to move from 4 then, because Anthony Richardson will be there at 4, obviously.
I don't know, man. It's getting crazy right now. Around this time of year, it gets crazy because
I'm so mad that his stock has blown up that much.
Because think about it, his stock is blown up before he has even done anything in the combine. So imagine if he kills the combine, which he is.
Slip on his 40-yard dash, please. Just slip. Throw some ducks, please.
Something.
Yeah, no, but hey, look, you guys, tonight was a remarkable show. You guys really showed up. You guys are remarkable. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you subscribe to Real Raider Ray. Subscribe to Pharaoh NFL.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to be doing a show on Pharaoh NFL's channel next. So make sure you guys are subscribed to him, and we'll have that coming. Saturday's exciting to look forward to. There's a lot to build up, and as we move forward for free agency, look for us to be dropping more content. We're going to probably be doing some pre-records, but also I know personally I'm going to be making free agency videos, short 4-minute clips. And so you guys are going to want to stay tuned for that. Make sure that on your way out, you hit the like button. It helps us more than you guys know. And yeah, we appreciate it. You got any closing segments?
Nah, man. Hey, like we said earlier, man, make sure to hit the like button. Let me put on my like button. Oh, hold up. It's not even loud enough. There you go.
There you go.
Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Get my Ray. Hey, get Ray to we need to grow this channel, man. Like, hey, everybody that subscribed to me need to be subscribed to Ray's channel, because obviously we switch up on every time we go live. So you want to make sure you're subscribed to both channels. And yeah, man, like, hey, look, the next time we go live, it's going to be on my channel. So you want to make sure you check out that. Be on the lookout for that. I post on a community tab. I haven't done lately, but I'm going to get back into the groove, especially with free agency around the corner. The draft is pretty much almost here. Well, we got a couple months, but it's heating up right now. The combine's happening, so we're gonna be going live sooner rather than later. But yeah, man, we appreciate everybody coming through. If we didn't get to your message in the chat, make sure to leave a comment as well, because we respond. We want to hear your thoughts. We value you guys' opinions. It kind of inspires us to have that conversation again. So make sure to leave comments as well.
Perfect. All right, Raider Nation. You guys know how we end the show. Take care. Tune in with us next time. And as always, just win, baby. Peace.
Peace.